Our final inductee for 2015 is Earl Young, to be presented by the voice of the Wildcats, Grant Boone from Abilene Christian University.
Not yet, Earl. Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay. We bear a striking resemblance, don't we? Yes.
This looked like Earl Young when I knew him.
I'm just as fast as Earl in the starting blocks, and that's where the similarities end. Well, I can't speak like Bill Melton, I can't write like Carlton Stowers, and I don't have the history with ASU athletics that Hall of Fame Sports Information Director Garner Roberts has. But I'll do my best tonight. It is a true honor to be here. When you've won as many races and been in as many airports, train stations, and bus depots as Earl Young has over the last half century, as a world record-setting runner and international businessman, you grow accustomed to people calling your name. But of the countless occasions in which Earl has heard his name called through the years, none was more life-changing than when the 17-year-old Southern California senior was summoned to his high school for a call that he didn't know what it was about. Now, for many of us, a trip to the principal's office would have meant only one thing. In those days, probably something wooden and definitely something painful. But there wasn't a punishment waiting for Earl Young that day, just a possibility and the opportunity of a lifetime. In that principal's office sat Abilene Christian College track and field coach Oliver Jackson and the world's fastest man, a three-time gold medalist from the Olympics 2 years prior, and one of America's greatest and most recognizable athletes, the great Bobby Morrow. The deal may well have been sealed before a word had been spoken. Earl Young would be an Abilene Christian Wildcat. In just 2 seasons at ACC, Earl dropped 3 seconds off his best quarter-mile time and gained at least that many inches in height. Coach Jackson liked to say Earl was split high, the way he described all of his long-legged runners. But when he settled into the starting blocks at the 1960 U.S. Olympic trials in Palo Alto, California, a 19-year-old sophomore, he was still considered by many a long shot to qualify for the American team. 46 and a half seconds later, he had punched his ticket to Rome, finishing second only to Jack Yerman. It wouldn't be the last time that summer that Earl would follow his fellow Californian. In the 4x400 relay at the Olympic Games, Yerman gave the U.S. an early lead and passed the baton to Earl. As his German opponent, Manfred Kinder, closed on him, Earl heard a familiar sound piercing through the noise at Olympic Stadium. It was Coach Jackson whistling a reminder not to loaf that curve. Well, Earl kicked it into gear, ran his leg in only 45.6, gave Glenn Davis the baton and the lead, and the rest is history. Otis Davis finished off a world record time of 3:02.2. At 19, Earl was the Olympics' youngest gold medalist. He'd go on to set 3 more world records, lead his Abilene Christian teams to numerous titles, including ones at the Texas, Kansas, and Drake relays. He'd make the cover of Sports Illustrated in 1961 and win 2 gold medals at the 1963 Pan American Games. Little did he know, though, as he left Abilene, Texas to embark on a successful career in international commerce, Earl's greatest victory would come nearly 50 years later when he defeated leukemia, thanks in no small measure to a bone marrow transplant sacrificially supplied by a woman in Germany he had never met, who didn't know him and most certainly was not aware that he'd helped deny her homeland a gold medal in the 1960 Olympics 4x4. Since then, Earl has taken the baton and worked tirelessly to encourage everyone to register as a bone marrow donor through the nonprofit organization Delete Blood Cancer. Once a relay man, always a relay man. All those years after being summoned to the principal's office, Earl Young's name is being called again tonight to join this prestigious company, which includes fellow Wildcats, James Segrist, Coach Don Hood, and Billy Olson. See, he's the fourth. Once a relay man, always a relay man. Through his accomplishment on and off the track, He has brought great honor to his alma mater, that's for sure, and I believe to his adopted home state of Texas. And if this acceptance speech loafs a bit into the curve, we may yet again hear Coach Jackson's whistle, encouraging him to move it along. On behalf of Abilene Christian University, it's my distinct privilege to introduce for induction into the Texas Track and Field Coaches Hall of Fame, the great Earl Young.
I can't like that.
You know, really, you should check with your presenter so you know what he's going to say, because now I can say, in closing, thank you, Grant. Thank you for those kind words. They bring back a lot of memories. And there are three of us here tonight, I know. It's James Segrist back here. Dennis, where are you sitting now? Dennis? These guys know what it is, Bubba, like your guys do, know what it is to coach under a great man. The first thing I want to give recognition to is Oliver Jackson. Dennis and I were talking the other day, he'd be 94 now, right, if he were still alive. One of the great men, man my dad and mom both called my second dad. A wonderful man, awesome coach. What he did, I was thinking the other day, what he did in a 10-year span with athletes and world records is enviable by any coach. Pardon me. Dean, you ran the first leg? Yeah. Okay, well, let me educate you just a little bit about anchor. What an anchor man does is pick up the time. So, Bill, I'm going to try to pick up some of the time here. Some of these guys have let get away here today. And there's something else you probably don't know. It's not told around Texas very often, around Austin. But guys, once upon a time, it was orange. And then they started running against Abilene Christian. And you know what it's called now? It's called burnt orange. Catch up. Come on. Just wanted to get that clear out there for you. A lot of history you may not have caught up on, you know. I want to tell you, we had some of the greatest times. James did, Dennis did, I did. We love that track down there. Absolutely love it. Matter of fact, we three of us all set world records on your tracks, matter of fact.
It was so fast they did away with it.
Yeah, okay. That was a wonderful track down there. Texas Relays, great memories. Bill, great memories of you down there. Carlton, you remember you down there. Yeah. Wonderful days. Kevin, you said something tonight that kind of set the tone for me when you started off. You gave honor to God. And buddy, you're absolutely right. All the athletes in this audience, they didn't make those bodies. A higher being gave us these bodies. Now what the athletes in this audience have done, they took that great gift that was given to them by the Father and they developed it to its ultimate. You're going to develop yours more. You've got a lot more to do. Always give credit to the Father. That's who started you off. I'm a big believer in purpose. I talk a lot about purpose. I've had 73 years, going on 74 years, only exceeded by my mom and dad. Mom's going to be 99 tomorrow, and Dad's 95. Been married 75 years. How's that for a world record? Nearly 70-year-old, 74-year-old man still calling two people mama and daddy. But I'm proud to do it. Because where I started off, like Grant said, I started off in California. CA, I'm one of those bumper stickers that says I wasn't born here but got here as quick as I could. Man, I mean it. But I came from good Texas and Okie stock, so it was a natural thing. But the day I was born, people say, well, when did you think you were going to be a runner? Well, my dad thought it before I did, because the day I was born, he told the doctor, there's my quarter miler. And things kind of progressed from there. Sure, I liked running. I liked high jumping in the backyard where he built a pit for me. When I was 16 years old, my dad could still outrun me for 100 yards. He could have been a great runner himself if he'd had the opportunity to, but times were different then, and he had to go to work, but his son got to go to school. And that story Grant told about how I found Abilene Christian. I was raised in the Church of Christ, so you can see the connection there to Abilene Christian. But I didn't know until after about half a year that when I was Abilene, that my grandmother, real matriarch, my grandmother had written Oliver Jackson a letter and said, I've got a grandson who's been raised in the Church of Christ, who's a pretty fair track hand. Could you find your way to help him go to school there? As Grant said, in high school as a senior, 17 years old, my best time was 49.6. That's not bad if you're Midlothian, but I was in the LA Basin. I was there with Manual Arts, and some great high schools. So I was looking to go into Occidental, go into SC, when, as Grant said, I was sitting in class in May of '58, and the registrar sent a runner down to the office and said, you need to come down and call your dad. I went down and called Dad. Dad said on the other end of the line, he said, son, he said, Bobby Morrow and Oliver Jackson are here in my office. Can you get out of school to come and have lunch with us? Guys, Bobby Morrow's an old name to y'all, but let me tell you what, in my day, that was as good as it got. As far as I'm concerned, this day is as good as it got. Bobby Morrow was my hero. I copied my running style after him. Anything he would do, I would do. And there I was having lunch with him. They were out there for the Coliseum relays. And there I was having lunch with Bobby Morrow and Oliver Jackson. I didn't know who this Oliver Jackson guy was. I was to learn who Oliver Jackson was. Number one, again, you guys that knew him, he was one of the greatest salesmen on the face of the earth. He could embellish like you wouldn't believe. And he told me about Abilene, Texas. I'm in San Fernando, California, not realizing that this isn't the way the whole world is. This is for 17 years of my life. This is the way the world is. You know, new roads, new streets, new buildings, orange orchards. This must be the way the world is. No, it's not the way the world is. Oliver told me about Abilene, said he was prepared to offer me a scholarship. Hey, I knew I was going to make Mom and Dad happy going to Church of Christ school, and I was going where Bobby Morrow was graduating. Where James Seacrest, Bobby Morrow, Wayman Griggs, Bill Woodhouse had set world records. You guys I knew everything you did, James. Awesome group. So in September, we hopped in our cars. I hopped in my 55 Chevy. We went caravan style, 3 cars of us, back to Abilene, Texas. Get into Abilene, where I've never been before in my life. The only folks that aren't laughing in here are ones that have never been to Abilene. The rest of y'all know the punchline on this one. So we drive into Abilene. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. I still don't know Abilene. It's 2 in the morning. I go into one of the dormitories, into Edward's dorm, sleep on the couch. Get up the next morning, walk outside, and say, my God, what have I done? Now, Abilene Christian today is beautiful. You can walk to class in the shade under trees. It's come a long ways, Dean, a long ways. I wouldn't trade for it. Greatest time of my life. Greatest people, greatest coaching, greatest friends. It just, as you can imagine, just means so much in my life. And let me tell you, I want to share something else with you. I want to tell you about once upon a time. Dina brought mine. The reason I brought it is I want to tell you a story about it. This has been a partner with me since I was 19 years old. And if you look at it, I'd be happy for you too. You see, it's rubbed, got quite a patina. It's been rubbed. This has gone to track meets in Africa, in Europe. It's been held by little kids in villages this high. That's what it's for. That's what it's for. That's what it represents. It represents excellence. We all know that. I'm very proud of it. I want to tell you a little story about that because when I got it, I was 19 years old. 19-year-old boys don't know a whole lot what to do with fame. First thing you do is get somebody around them, teach them something about it. They're not raised with it. They don't know how to handle it. I don't think I abused it, but I worried about the ego side of it. Didn't want anybody thinking I thought a little too much of myself. Remember that feeling, Dean? Yeah. If you're worth your salt, you're going to feel like that. Remember General Harry Crutcher, CA? General Crutcher, I was working at the Mercantile Bank, first year out of doing my graduate work at Abilene Christian. I was working at what was the Mercantile Bank downtown at the time, in the business development department, bringing new accounts in, corporate and individual and so on. General Crutcher grabbed me by the arm one day and said, I want to take you to lunch. Took me across the street to a place called the Insurance Club. Really going back now, aren't I, in history. And he said, two things. He said, a couple things I want to ask you. He said, number one, he said, you're doing great in the business development department, but what are you doing at the bank? I said, well, new kid in town, you date the Debs and work for the bank. He said, no. He said, you need to take a stronger look at the Rauscher Pierce Securities, which was a stock brokerage firm. He said, you really like that business? I said, yeah, I really do. He said, well, they're having their first training class. He said, I think I can get you in it, et cetera, and that's how I ended up in the securities industry. And he said, I've got another question for you, and this is an important one. You young athletes, pay attention to this. He said, I notice whenever anybody compliments you on that gold medal, he said, you kind of take aw shucks, yeah, I was lucky. He said, didn't you work hard for that gold medal? I said, you bet I did. He said, then why don't you look them right in the eye, shake their hand firmly, and just say, thank you, I worked hard for that. Learn to take your compliments straight on. You guys are working hard for what you're going to get. This is for all of us, folks. You need to know how to say please. You also need to know how to say thank you. And you athletes especially, you need to know how to say that thank you. Like you said, Kevin, you didn't give yourself that body. God gave you that body. Now what you're going to do is perfect it. That you can say thank you for. You can say thank you to him for the body. Say thank you to me when I tell you what a great job you did when you go to the Olympics. And that's the way to shoot at it. As my good friend Grant Boone said, over the last 3 years, let me stop a second. Honey, would you stand up? Nancy? I want y'all to meet my wife, Nancy. That's my son, Grant. My son, Grant, sitting next to her. My older daughter, Stacy, sitting over on the other side. Our baby, thank you. Our baby is up at OU, finishing up her last semester. And I want to mention her because she is something very unusual in my side of the family. She's going to graduate summa cum laude, and that just doesn't make any sense to me, Dean, at all. I'm back with you, buddy. I need some help. But anyway, I'm very proud of my family, and I wanted y'all to see them. As Grant said, my last few years have been very interesting. But I want to tell you what, it's the most exciting time of my life. You say, wait, Earl, you got one of those. Yeah. But let me tell you what, life can get more exciting as you go on, guys. You just think that athletics is it's a pinnacle, and it should be. It's one of the pinnacles. Go for it. Do as great at it as you can. But don't be surprised if somewhere out there in some of those other decades, you get to look back and say, hey, I see what this was. This was the build up to something else. I can do something bigger than that gold medal, and you can. And I believe, my particular spiritual belief believes that that's why you take those great strides that you take, have those great things happen in your life so you can do something else. And it's your responsibility to do more. I think somebody mentioned earlier, to him who is given much, much is expected. These athletes that you've honored tonight, they all understand that, and they've all done it. And they'll all continue to do it. Grant mentioned my involvement with delete blood cancer. I had a doctor tell me 3 years ago I had 3 months to live, unless I could find a bone marrow transplant. that time, there were 22 million people in the world signed on as volunteers to be bone marrow transplant donors. My donor, Christine Wag in Germany, I thank God every day that she signed on to be a donor because she was the only one that matched me. So I get to tell you that story tonight because of that. And it would be irresponsible for me not to tell you that, and to be irresponsible for me not to continue to try to make people aware of the need for people to be bone marrow donors in this world. It's a big need for it. Out of every 10 people that are diagnosed with what I have, only 4 of us find a donor. It's not a downer. Don't mean to end this on a downbeat at all, Bill. It's an upbeat. It's an upbeat. Great athletes, great night, great honors to all of us. We've had wonderful lives. I want you to have wonderful lives. You athletes that are here, going to be following you, going to be watching what you're doing, and you're going to do great things. Thank you to the Texas Association for this honor, and God bless y'all. Oh, you bet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Olympian Earl Young, newest inductee into the Texas Track and Field Coaches Association Hall of Fame. Congratulations.